This video isn't going to get the most views, but I think it'll be helpful to several people. In the world of comics, there's a lot of stuff that goes on in the background. If you're a creator or you're wanting to get into comics, you're going to review comics or all the rest, at times legal documents may come floating across your desk. What should you do with them? Why do they count? And what are these things? I'm going to try and help explain, starting with an NDA. Hey everybody, this is Perch. I think this stuff's pretty cool, but it's not going to get anywhere close to the amount of attention as our boobs drawn smaller in comics these days. But but that is the world we live in. What is an NDA? An NDA is a non-disclosure agreement, and on the surface, an NDA is a pretty kind of, in theory, and there's going to be some people who immediately disagree with me. It's a benign document. The point of it is that you're basically trying to put some legal teeth or some language around confidentiality. And in addition to that, sometimes when you have multi-party relationships, this is maybe, for example, let's say you have Marvel Comics and you have Disney Studios or Marvel Studios, and then you have a freelancer coming in that's going to do a comic that has something to do with the movie, right? You want a comic that's going to be a prequel before the movie launches, and so you're going to release information about the movie to the freelancer for them to draw the comic. So you may want to show them some clips of the movie, or maybe show them a script, and you want them to sign an NDA so they don't take that script or that information and go send it over to Bleeding Cool, and then it goes up on a website. So you ask them to sign an NDA. Now, what does an NDA mean? It means that as the person signing it, you're basically saying, I'm going to keep this to myself. I'm getting secret information, and I'm going to keep it to me. And in that form, an NDA is a relatively benign, simple document. It's kind of a reminder to say, look, you need to keep this stuff to yourself. What could go wrong with that? Well, quite a few things, and I'll go into that. So first off, before we get into any of this, I am not a lawyer, so I'm giving you common sense advice. Now, I've dealt with a lot of these documents many a time. I've had to enforce them. I've had to fight them. I've had to get them rewritten. I've had to, sit in meetings for a long time, particularly as a contractor, as a freelancer. I've had to go through the weeds on these things. I've had many friends where they've gone horribly wrong. So my most important bit of advice is this. If anything I'm saying sounds at all confusing or dodgy to you, and maybe even if it doesn't, get a lawyer. If you're a freelancer and you're working in comics and you're producing original work, have a lawyer. Now, you might say to yourself, wait a minute, I'm poor. I can't afford a lawyer. But you can. You can get legal advice. You can at least get a relationship with a lawyer for nothing. You can get most introductory conversations are free. It doesn't hurt, in many cases, if you're new to legal matters, to talk to 2 lawyers or 3 lawyers. Take advantage of that 1 hour free consult, talk to a couple people, assess a personality fit, and also see how the information lines up. There are certainly absolutely disreputable lawyers. Sometimes these lawyers even form comic companies called like Terrific Productions. But you can certainly find people who are shady. I'm just saying. So make sure that there's no harm in shopping a little bit. If you were going to get surgery on yourself, like you're going to get open heart surgery, you probably wouldn't just look in the phone book, find, heart surgeon, and then just go to that person without doing some research. So take some time, do some research. It's worth your time. If you do have to pay for legal services, my biggest advice there is just get a dollar amount up front, get an estimate up front. Some lawyers love to do hey, I'm, at $150 an hour. I'm not sure exactly how long it's going to take, but it can't take that long. And from that, you think, oh, probably an hour. And in their heads, they're like, probably 2 weeks. So, make sure you can get a pretty big bill if you're not careful. Just get this stuff up front. But at any rate, how can this stuff go wrong? Well, the first one and the biggest is that there's an NDA and there's a confidentiality agreement. An NDA basically says don't disclose personal private information. A confidentiality agreement is much more significant. And this is in comics in particular. This is where I see it go wrong the most, because the people writing these agreements are either, taking advantage of the fact that a lot of freelancers don't have money for their own legal representation, or that they don't really understand the two. A confidentiality agreement is not just you saying you'll be quiet about it, it's you saying you're going to be proactive in being quiet about it. And that idea of I'm going to do actual forward-looking work is where you get sued. It's where you can get a lot of damages put upon you. For example, if you get, let's use this example again. If you get a script for a Marvel movie, it's in your inbox and life is pretty good. All right. Now, let's say you signed an NDA, and let's say that somebody hacked into your mailbox, the stuff got breached, whatever, that leaked out into the world through no fault of your own. You took reasonable efforts. You had a password, and it leaked. With an NDA, it would be difficult, a normal NDA, for the company to come after you. You've shown that you've protected data and you've done your best. Somebody stole it from you. With a confidentiality agreement, it could be argued in court that you weren't proactive enough in securing your account. That maybe instead of when the stuff came in an email, you should have deleted permanently from your inbox as soon as you could and put it on your laptop and added additional passwords on top of it to keep it secure. So it couldn't. Unfortunately, confidentiality agreements really put the power into the company and takes power away from you. It means that if the company deems you didn't do enough, you're in trouble. And that's where, if you are coming into these things, and a lot of companies these days are disguising confidentiality agreements in NDAs. An NDA almost always should be a 1 or 2 paragraph, 1-page document. If it's bigger than that, you should be suspicious right out the gate. A lot of language never is a good thing. The more language that is in a contract that somebody's asking you to sign is always for their protection, not yours. It's them providing additional clauses that they could use to come at you if necessary. So just be wary of that. Should you take NDAs to a lawyer? Hopefully not. But if you're new to this and doing it for the first time, it's a good idea to have a legal person look over this. You're just going to spend some money. As a general rule of thumb, something you can do is just literally Google search standard NDA, look for, reasonable company name there, compare it to the one you just got. Get educated a little bit about your document before you go sending it off to a lawyer or do anything else. I'm not saying be your own lawyer. I'm just saying do a few minutes worth of work to just try and digest what it is you've got before you go paying somebody to read it for you. That way you can ask more intelligent questions. You know what's going on. You know where your information is lacking. There's also the thing of a one-way NDA and a two-way NDA. Now, this is an interesting bit. Generally, you want a two-way NDA as a creator. So what does this mean? Well, let's say you have a one-way NDA where the information is protected one direction. Okay? Going back to that earlier example, let's say you're a freelancer and Marvel contacts you about doing a comic. You're very excited. They send you that script, right? And you basically, you see a little bit of the movie. You're excited about it. The editor asks you to do a little pitch. You say, hey, I thought of this great idea. It's a prequel comic, but, Black Widow's going to fight Taskmaster. What if we reveal that, earlier in their life as kids, they were rivals, and you put a little story together and you give it to them. Well, if you signed a one-way NDA, it means you have to protect the information that Marvel sent you, but they do not have to protect the information that you send them. So if you give them ideas, if you give them, IP, if you give them something valuable, if you tell them something secret, let's say, there's lots of different reasons why you would want a two-way NDA. You want your information that you pass to them to be protected. Now, many times if you're working with Marvel or DC or any large company, and I can say this with some experience with those companies, they will not accept a two-way NDA. They don't want to take any of the liability for protecting your information, and they will just say no. So what does that mean? Does that mean you shouldn't sign anything and it shouldn't do work? Well, no, but it's information to you about that you need to keep your mouth shut. It means that if somebody shares something with you, and companies will do this all the time, particularly companies attached to a mouse, will do this thing where, they will share some data with you, you're obligated to protect it. And then they'll ask you, so what do you think about this? Do you have any ideas? Do you have any reactions? Why don't you tell me what you think? And are you working on any other projects that relate to this? And they'll kind of fish for information. But anything you tell them is theirs. So don't. That's the world you live in. And that's where you have to be very, very, very careful. I mean, NDAs can be valuable things. Some people look at this stuff like any kind of legal document is a trap, a way to kind of screw you. That's not the case. In many cases, NDAs help define where the privacy is, and that can be a helpful thing, particularly if you're doing a lot of work, particularly if you're in a freelance kind of relationship. But if just being careful about what you're getting is important. And keep in mind that NDAs are unlimited when they're written in such a way that there's not caps on what information you're protecting. In your mind, you might think, to that script example, hey, I just need to make sure I keep this script quiet. I won't share it with Rich Johnston. Good idea. But the NDA is often written in such a way that you are also needing to protect how much money they're spending on the project. I mean, let's say during a casual conversation, they send you the script and they say, yeah, we're spending $250 million on this. And, we did some focus group testing and people were really excited about it. Okay, those are kind of benign statements. But let's say later you're talking to some friends and you say, well, I can't tell you anything about it, but, they spent like $250 million on this. You just violated your NDA. Now you might say, well, wait a minute, other people are doing that. I think I read on Variety or some website that they spent that money. So I'm not leaking any information. I could have gotten that from anywhere. That's true. But once you've entered into a formal agreement, once you've signed an NDA, then all the information you're getting on this topic is formal. It is now they're delivering to you. Even if you heard it from somewhere else, that doesn't matter anymore. The fact that they said something to you means you're obligated to protect it. Even if you already knew the information, you're now obligated to keep it secret. And that's why you just need to be careful about what you do. It's also a good idea to take notes. If you're going into a call where you have an NDA assigned, take notes about what you talked about. Get a recording of the meeting if you can do that, if they'll agree to it. These are all pieces that you should just have in your mind to be careful with. Now, the reality is most companies are not going to get litigious. Most companies are not going to invest the time to come after you for every little thing. But every time you sign a document, you're signing a commitment. And so whether they come after you later or not, it's important to remember that that commitment is sitting out there. And you should take it seriously, because if there's ever a breach or a big problem, people are going to look for recovery and they're going to come for you. So that's what an NDA is. Again, not the most popular video, I'm sure, but think of it as some useful little bit of data. Want to make sure everybody's protected, not getting involved in this kind of stuff. The best reason to have a lawyer is to have one contracted, to have a relationship with somebody, is to not have a lawyer. If that makes any sense. Have a lawyer so you don't have to use a lawyer. If you're ever in a place where things have gone bad and now you're having to use a lawyer because there's a problem, you are in for a miserable, hellish experience. So having a little bit of lawyer up front is way better than a lot of lawyer in the back. There you go. Any questions, thoughts, comments, leave that below. Happy to answer whatever I can. I'm going to do a couple other videos on contracts and other things, what to look out for. Again, hopefully they're helpful. Like, subscribe, click the bell for notifications, follow me on social media. Most importantly, though, thanks for listening.